So we have Sammy Obeid on the phone.
Yes.
So you wanted to, just introduce yourself and say, your title, what you do?
Yeah, my name is Sammy Obeid. I'm a comedian based out of California. And I'm doing this thing where I perform every night for 1,000 nights in a row. And I'm currently on day 949.
Wow. So you're coming there. You're almost there. When did you start?
Almost. This began December 26th of 2010.
Wow.
I was 26 years old. It was almost 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I was full of ambition and trying to get out there, trying to put myself out there. Didn't have a lot of money. Didn't have a lot of establishment in the comedy community.
Yeah.
But I just went full on and just gave it my all. And now here I am, almost 3 years later.
That's awesome.
Still standing.
Did you
Still standing.
Did you think that any time that you weren't going to be able to do this?
Like, you mean like where
Like
you got close to missing a show or something
yeah.
like that? Or
Yeah.
what? Oh, yeah, there was a lot of close calls. There was nights where my show would get canceled, and I'd have to run around and, beg a local bar to put me up for the patrons and perform.
Wow.
Yeah, there's all sorts of nights like that where I had everything against me, but I pulled through every time.
That's awesome. Wow.
Yeah.
So 1,000 nights or 1,000 days, I guess it is, right?
Yeah, 1,000 days of comedy, but I'm going to do one bonus to make it 1,001.
Okay.
Arabian Nights of comedy, yeah.
And now, you, what are some of let's talk about that, the close calls there. Like, where are the craziest places you had to perform to make it, to consider it a show?
I've been booked at a lot of crazy places in general. I mean, I've done weddings. I've done Indian weddings. I've done.
Okay. Indian weddings seems to be a hot topic on this show, by the way. Just want you know.
Does it really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just did 2 Indian weddings in the past month for my friends.
Really? In LA?
No, one was in Fresno and one was in the Bay.
Okay.
Area, yeah. But yeah, there's that, and then I performed at a yoga studio. I performed in a cabin. I performed outside on the street in Oakland. Yeah, I mean, I've done all sorts of strange.
What
gigs.
do you consider now? What are you considering to be a show? Is it to 3 people or one? Does it have to just be one person?
Yeah, the criteria is that there's at least 3 people in the crowd. I'm using a microphone or I'm not, but it's implied that they're at a comedy show.
Okay.
I can't just roll up the people on the street and start talking to them and count that as a show.
Okay. That's cool.
But there's plenty of shows that don't have microphones. Like if you're in a little theater and you're not using a mic, so that kind of stuff will happen. And I have to perform for at least 3 minutes. The reason being is because in LA and New York, you'll have a lot of shows where you do really short sets. So, and those do count as sets.
Yeah.
People ask, are all these shows booked, or do you count open mics as well? And I have counted open mics here and there, but I don't abuse it. I'm not just like a comedian who's doing open mics for 1,000 days in a row. I'm usually booked. But, you got to get your stage time where you can. Everything counts.
Wow.
So yeah, I've been logging my hours on stage and my sets, and it's something right now, I'm almost at 2,500 sets for the whole streak.
Wow.
And
so you perform, I guess, more than once a night? With 2000?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, in the beginning of this streak, I was performing an average about 3 or 4 times a night.
Okay.
Uh, but lately it's been more like 2. I've had to scale back because I got burnt out, and then plus I do a lot of like traveling gigs now where you're just doing one gig on the road. So I'll be doing more time though. I'll be doing hours versus in the past I'd be driving around SF or LA to get 5 sets where I'm doing like 7 minutes each.
Okay.
So yeah.
So what gave you this idea to do this?
Well, I just kind of started doing it with hopes just to get on stage as much as possible and really grow fast and get better as a comedian.
Yeah.
And then it became about kind of connecting the numbers. So it became, can I make it to 100? And then I was like, oh, well, I can just go to 365. And then I got to 365, and I thought that was like a world record. And then some guy Facebook messaged me on day 365. He's like, hey, man, I hear that Hal Sparks, who is an established comedian,
Yeah.
I heard that he once did 2 years of stand-up straight in a row. So I went up and I looked it up on his blog, and he says he once did stand-up 2 years straight. So I was like, oh, God, well, I mean, I guess this isn't a record. I either got to quit now or try and beat that. So I decided to go over 2 years and do 1,000 days straight.
It's still crazy. The dedication and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I did that.
So I guess being in LA and stuff like that, has that helped you to be able to like get these opportunities and stuff like that to perform? Would you be able to do this anywhere else, do you think?
New York would probably be the easiest place to do it, to be honest, I think.
Have you performed in New York?
Yeah,
during the
a number
streak?
of times.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been there 3. I made 3 trips out there during the streak.
Okay.
And I think New York is the easiest place to get on stage. And then second would be LA, and then third would be San Francisco.
Okay. Yeah, I would think that. That's interesting.
So those are, like LA and SF on my homepage. So being in LA has made it easy. I mean, you can't do this in the middle of the United States. You can't do this in most towns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So last week actually was the first time I'm usually I have like a background in music. Then I started doing this podcast, and for the first time I went up and did like a comedy open mic. So, and this is kind of like what this podcast is going to be about. Now, what kind of advice would you have for somebody that's just starting out? I figured you'd be like a good guy to ask that question too.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of advice I could give. I mean, first thing would be to evaluate, why are you doing this? Are you just doing it to try it and kind of, be versatile, or are you doing it because you really want to pursue stand-up and be good at it?
Yeah.
And if you are just trying to dabble in stand-up, well then, just have a great time and just, don't be afraid, and that's great. That's great that you're doing it. If you're seriously considering stand-up as a career, make sure you know what you're getting yourself into and how hard it is to really break into stand-up.
Yeah.
Even if you're talented.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a lot of talent and a lot of work. I've done comedy 1,000 days in a row, and who am I?
Yeah.
So basically, I think as long as you know that it's a challenging road, you're constantly going to be faced with obstacles that you have to overcome. And yeah, this is the case with most things in life, but with comedy, it's pretty exceptional. So just know what you're getting yourself into, and then that said, really, really work hard. The key is getting on stage as much as possible.
I guess the key is getting on stage more than 1,000 times.
Well, as many times as you can. I mean, some people do comedy; they only perform once a week or once every other week. And that's not going to take you anywhere. You're not going to become a comedian.
Yeah.
If you keep quitting and coming back, you're not going to be a successful comedian. There's no way it can happen. At the same time, there's a lot of people who go on stage constantly, but they're not evolving. They're not writing. They're not pushing themselves. They're not doing the other components that also make you a dynamic stand-up comedian.
Mm-hmm.
So get on stage as much as possible. Use your stage time wisely. Right from your point of view. Don't try and emulate a comedian that you like. Be yourself. And
I think that's the hardest part that people have with it is just being themselves. You know, because I really feel like the better people are the people who are just as true as possible. You know what I mean?
Right. People start comedy because they've been told they're funny, but I mean, everybody's funny in their own way. But some people kind of use someone else's voice as a crutch.
Yeah.
They know that someone else's style of humor is, or how to write a joke in a certain way to get a laugh. But that's just emulation. That's not authenticity.
Yeah, and I've listened to, like, for the past 4 years, I've been listening to comedians' podcasts, and that's kind of like what has driven me to try this out, this new thing.
Yeah.
And I hear a lot of them, even like the pros and these guys who've been doing it for 25 years and whatnot, even say that they started out emulating somebody, and then they kind of got a hang of it. They kind of realized that. Yeah.
Yeah. You have to know that it's some form of emulation is going to be inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
But the sooner you're aware of it, and the sooner you overcome it, the sooner you'll find your voice. Because some comedians get stuck for years emulating, and it's just kind of this lost cause. You have to really be aware of it and know that if your style is kind of mimicking someone, that you have to be aware of that and know how to get out of it.
Yeah.
Often it's going to be people who your voice sounds like, or people who you look like, or people who you just idolize so much that you just really mimic their style of joke writing or their style of humor. I looked up to a lot of different comedians. I never focused on one. So my emulation was pretty broad-based. It was like I would emulate certain joke formulas, certain ideas, but never one comedian. So there was a time where people thought that I was biting off of a comedian because I looked a lot like it,
mm-hmm.
and I raised my voice a lot. There's a guy, an established comedian who looked similar to me at the time, and he was known for like this kind of like yelling. And so when I did that, people would automatically just assume that I was mimicking him. When I wasn't doing it intentionally, it just so happened that I looked like him, and they put those two together. But I had to become aware of that and do my best to go my own route so as to not just be another copy of him.
Yeah.
So you have to be aware. You have to be aware, even when it's unintentional and when it's intentional. You just have to know, what can I do to be more of myself?
I like that.
Yeah.
So I was reading your bio. It says you were also on like America's Got Talent. Was that?
I did America's Got. Yeah, I was there last year.
Is that during this?
2012.
Okay, so it's during the streak. Okay.
Yeah.
And you were on did you like get you like attention? Did they mention this? What you're doing?
I told them in the interviews, but they pretty much cut me from the program almost entirely.
Okay.
I started in the 300s. I went out for the audition, and then I got a call told me I was going to go to St. Louis to perform for the celebrity judges, and I was in the 400s.
Mm-hmm. And
then I made it to Vegas, and then I went to Vegas, and I got eliminated in Vegas. And the whole time I was, telling them my story. We were doing on-camera interviews, and it went really well. Like I had really good interviews, but I think there was an issue with most of my material, so they ended up cutting my stuff from the program, except for one joke they aired for me doing in Vegas. They aired that.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That happens in reality television.
Yeah.
So before you said you're like, I'm doing 1,000 nights, there's 1,000 days of comedy, and you did say like, who am I? But like, what kind of attention have you received from doing this? Like, has like the local news picked you up or anything like that? Or
Right now I'm sending out a lot of press releases. I've been doing local press for a while since the very beginning. I'm working on broadening that right now, doing some more bigger sources and stuff. But a lot of people have covered the story. A lot of comedy publications have covered the story. A lot of comedians know about it. They give me props for it. A lot of bookers find out about it. They see that I'm hardworking, and that helps me with getting booked. And then I have a fan base that follows and is very supportive. So I'm lucky to have a lot of very supportive people. I mean, it's pretty much a lot of people are just very cool and supportive about it. I mean, I'm just guessing generally, if I don't hear something from someone, it means they're not that impressed, which is fine. You know, there's a lot of comedians who work really hard, who perform 99% of the days of the year.
Mm-hmm.
I just, took it up one notch and, made a thing out of it.
Yeah. That's crazy. So what do you have planned for, it's coming up, so obviously something planned, but what do you have planned for the thousandth performance?
Yeah, well, I'm going to have some celebration shows. I'm going to do some shows in LA on the 1000th day, and I'm going to be doing some shows in the Bay Area for the 1001. So I'm going to be doing those celebration shows, and I'm going to take a vacation for a week. But then I have to come right back and do a college tour, so back to the grind.
That's awesome. And this is like your full-time thing, or do you do like acting or anything like that?
I do acting. This is my full-time paycheck right now, but I'm trying to break into acting.
Okay.
You have an advantage as a comedian, but you never know what's going to happen. But I'm trying. Like I moved to LA, I got the classes, I got an agent, go out for auditions and stuff. So I'm just trying to. I'm just hoping that next year I book something.
So yeah, you're not from LA exactly. I mean, you're from Oakland, which is not too far, but it's definitely it was a travel. Yeah. Probably it was a big step in your life to move there, right?
It was a big step because LA is a very different place. However, it was close enough to my home where I still go back a lot, and it didn't feel. I've been to LA a lot, so it didn't feel like it's foreign.
Yeah. So, what kind of like advice would you give to? Because really, it's something that I'm looking into doing, moving to LA.
Yeah.
What type of advice would you? I mean, we're similar in age and everything like that. What kind of advice would you give to somebody that wants to do that?
Who wants to move to LA to pursue entertainment?
Yeah.
Know that it's a vast pool of talent, and basically, the key to surviving LA is to not become disillusioned by LA, which is inevitable to a degree.
What do you mean by that?
LA is huge. It's huge, and it'll break you. I mean, there's just so many people trying to do the same thing that you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many people in the exact same category as you. It's like, how different are you from the other people? You have to ask yourself. And if you're doing something that's the same as someone else, are you better than them? How many other people are you competing against?
Yeah.
And, what are your advantages? What makes you unique? Like, all these things you need to know, because otherwise you're just kind of jumping out into this thing where it's, you never know who's gonna be the lucky winner, or who's the hardest worker. And it's filled with that, and it's filled with industry people, gatekeepers, who are essentially idiots. I mean, like, there's a lot of good, smart gatekeepers, but there's a lot of dumb ones who it's just like all people. But the thing is, the gatekeepers, the industry people, are people who tended to either they were artists and they failed at being artists, or it didn't work out for them, so they became gatekeepers.
Okay.
Or they're people who like to capitalize on people with talent. Either way, there's something a little sleazy about it.
Okay. Yeah.
That said, they're necessary for the part of the equation. But just knowing that you're dealing with a certain kind of people who, A, tend to have egos, they tend to be on power trips. B, they tend to see a lot of talent all the time.
Yep.
So they're jaded towards it. And C, it's luck of the draw. Who rubs you the right way? It's luck of the draw.
Yeah.
I've been in LA for over 2 years now, and I'm just finally getting a manager.
Mm-hmm.
I was qualified to have a manager well over 2 years ago. But I wasn't even spotted. I had to get references. You know, so people say you go to LA, you get discovered. You can go years in LA without being discovered. And I've been everywhere. I've been out performing everywhere, and in a lot of ways, still have not been discovered.
Okay.
So it'll make you question: is it me? Is it what I'm doing? Do I suck? And you want to give up. You don't. You're not in LA until you want to give up. That's how you know you're in LA.
Yeah.
There's a day where you're on the floor in your bathroom in fetal position, just like wondering where it all went wrong.
Yeah.
That's how you know you're in LA. And the key to that is just riding through those moments and guiding yourself back to your craft and doing what you do. And never giving up. I mean, because there's too many cases of people who move to LA and then move back, or they move to LA and give up. And you know what? That's fine, because a lot of people do it every day. But if we got rid of all the people who did that, then there would be room for everyone who's not going to give up to get what they want. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the people who come here and flood it with numbers and they give up. The people who are kind of wasting everybody's time. So that's why I kind of say, if you really are serious about it, then do it. You have to ask, like, how thick is your skin? How tough are you? How hard are you going to work for it? How bad do you want it? How talented are you? What makes you unique?
I hear you.
All of these things are very important to consider before you move to LA. But when you move to LA, just take everything with a grain of salt. Be nice to everybody. Don't, that's, I think, a key rule in any industry.
Mm-hmm.
Be nice to everybody. But in LA, it pays off, fourfold. I mean, you just have to be nice and make connections. Recognize what makes you unique. Work hard. Start something of your own. Don't just kind of go out there and let the rules guide you. Like, start something, do something, create something.
Like lead your own pack kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. These things help. Yeah.
I think the biggest problem is just like kind of like where I'm living now and stuff like that. I have access to the city, though. It is an hour away, but I just don't have like the people with me and the people nearby to be like creative with, and I kind of just feel like I'm alone in that sense. Not to turn this into a therapy session, but No,
I know what you mean.
Yeah,
I know what you mean. Yeah, man. I mean, it's tough. You got to pick your battles. You got to find out what's important to you and where you have to draw the line and what you have to do to get where you want to be. It's all one big decision-making process. So, it's tough. It's tough. I mean, any kind of entertainment, it's tough for people who have families or they have some kind of commitment that's tying them down. I mean, it's not, if you have other commitments and you're firm on those commitments, then it's not for you. It's like you have to be free to do some of these things.
Yeah.
And if you aren't, then it's just a part-time hobby. And if it's a part-time hobby, then don't expect anything big out of it, because there's other people who are putting their full time into it.
Yeah, I hear you. All right, so I asked the question on Twitter. What are some questions you'd have for somebody doing 1,000 days of performances? And I got back a couple of questions. They're kind of basic, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
What joke bombed that you thought would do so well?
Well, what joke bombed that I thought would do well? Is that what you said?
Yeah, that was one of the questions.
Okay. And this is just in general, like whenever I do it, or?
I guess, or one time. I really don't know. That's, yeah.
Well, there was a time when I was in San Francisco, I was opening for Louis C.K., and I told my flat tire joke.
Actually, I read this. I read this on your website, so I did do some research. Yeah, but go ahead. Yeah, you want to tell it?
So the flat tire joke is, I got a flat tire right next to a homeless man. Mm-hmm. So I was looking at him for help. For once, it was like opposite world. He's like, spare change. I'm like, change spare. And the joke, it fell flat, pun intended, in front of this audience in San Francisco. And I was opening for Louis C.K., and Louis C.K. was in the back watching. I'm like, oh no, he probably thinks this joke sucks because he saw it bomb. Mm-hmm. But then Louis C.K. goes up on stage for his set, and the first thing he comes on, he says, "Fuck you guys for not laughing at that flat tire joke. That was genius. Oh my God, that idea has been sitting there for years, and he was the first one to bring it out. You guys should be ashamed of yourselves for not laughing at that. I dare you to come up with something better yourselves."
That's so true.
Yeah, so that was kind of a memorable experience where, a good comedian sees a joke bomb, a good joke bomb, but he's a good enough comedian to recognize that was the crowd and the joke is actually really good.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Yeah, it is a pretty genius joke. Like it should have been done before, but it wasn't. The other question is, how do you deal with hecklers? This is very basic comedian questions here, but how would you deal with a heckler?
I'm going to give you a very different answer than any other comedian because I specifically deal with hecklers in a way that's different than other comedians. A, because I want to be different from everybody else, and B, I genuinely don't like the typical way that comedians deal with hecklers. The typical way that comedians deal with hecklers is, or the macho comedians teach themselves to deal with hecklers, is to shut them down, to show them who has the authority. It becomes kind of an ego contest at that point. It's like the people will come up with sayings, to be like, "I'm the one with the microphone. I'm getting paid to do this. So I'm the one." And the worst one is, I don't come to your job and slap the dick out of your mouth.
Yep.
And it's like these patented lines that just have been passed down from one scared comedian to another to try and fend their way out of a situation that they can't come up with a creative idea to deal with. So what I did is I said, well, look, I don't like being a mean person. I'm not a mean. I like to be nice to people, and I actually. Sometimes people heckle unintentionally. They say stuff, or they're drunk, and they don't know what they're doing, and the comedian's an asshole to them. I've seen a poor woman just say, "Oh, that's very funny," and then the comedian says, "Shut the fuck up. This is my show." And the crowd laughs, and they cheer for this comedian berating this poor woman who just had no idea what she was doing. And then comedians commend them, like, "Oh yeah, he handled that." No, he didn't. He was a dick for no reason. This poor defenseless woman is never going to go to a comedy show ever again because she was berated by a comedian. Every time comedians berate the audience, we lose money as an industry, and they don't get this. We lose people who they never want to come to comedy shows again because they were beaten up by some asshole comedian.
Yeah.
So what I said is, I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to be extra nice to hecklers. So my policy is this: I treat hecklers. I treat this like comedy service. I treat this like
they're a hotel guest.
I guess I treat comedy like customer service.
Yeah.
The heckler is always right. Okay.
Yep.
So what I do is, the heckler says something, and I go with it. I say, okay, this is your concern. I let them wear the pants. I let them have the authority. And two, a couple things are going to happen. One, we're going to find out this person's in a drunken idiot kind of rambling, and then it becomes funny. We go on their nonlinear train of thought, and it takes us to a place of ridiculousness that is much funnier than just yelling at them to shut up.
Yeah.
Or we find out that that they're being mean, in which case the crowd can see they're being mean, and they see that they want to side with me because I'm the victim of a hate crime at that point.
Yeah.
And so they can side with me no matter how I deal with it. I don't have to be mean to them. I can just be like, we can go from there, and the crowd will already be on my side because the crowd is smart enough to know that they're being mean to me, but I'm not afraid to talk to them. Or this person could have a very logical, good point. They can be making a logical point to my joke in which we delve into how their point is good and what the ramifications of that point would be, and when we factor it into my joke. I add their addition to my joke, and we do a new hypothetical situation, and it benefits. It benefits the crowd. We gain. It's always a gain. It's always a win-win. However, the this process that I go through is still not complete. Like it's a lot easier to shut down a heckler and tell them to shut the fuck up than to take this risk and see where it goes and make it funny. It's not easy. I wouldn't say. I better not see anyone else doing it because it's my thing. But it's still under work. That's what I did.
Last question that they had was, did you find out you were drinking more nervousness? That's the question. I guess, did you have, are you ever nervous?
I do get nervous.
Because I feel like when I go to these open mics and whatever shows I go to, you could tell like the people that are nervous, they kind of put up like a facade. They kind of go into a character, and you can kind of tell they're not just being themselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very important to not be nervous.
So how do you?
You want to look. Look genuine.
Yeah, how do you stay not nervous, I guess?
It's kind of just, you have to, I mean, I don't want to just say you have to have balls, but you kind of just have to, not give a fuck. Mm-hmm. And that can come with time of just doing it a lot. If you do something enough, you'll not give a fuck about it. And there's that, and then also just training yourself to not give a fuck. Just to be like, I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. Mm-hmm. Meditate on that. Make that I don't give a fuck your mantra. And you will eventually just, it'll even if you are nervous, the key is just to not show it. And surprisingly, there's comedians, even myself, can be really nervous and it cannot show. But sometimes it's very transparent. So, I mean, the key is to just, no matter what it is, just look like you don't give a fuck.
I like that.
And this is not like I don't give a fuck in the sense like I don't give a fuck if I'm doing a good job or like I don't give a fuck if about you guys. It's more like I don't give a fuck about the tenseness of the situation. I'm relaxed. I'm not nervous.
Yeah. That's good. So, do you have anything else like you want to say? Anything else you want to plug? Where you're going to be maybe performing?
Just check out my blog. My blog, SammyKO.com, has stories of the whole experience, and you can follow me on Twitter at Sammy Obeid, SammyObeid, or Instagram. I post a picture of me performing every day. Facebook, whatever. If you want to come out to a show and, come over in your local area, come out. And the 1,000 day will be September 20th and the 1,001 will be September 21st. So any help in just tweeting and, putting the word out there is appreciated. I just want to get more people following and help me out be there during this part of history, this part of comedy history.
And what's next after the 1,000th day of comedy? But what do you have planned?
Well, like I said, I'm going to take a vacation for a week, and I'm going to start this college tour shortly after. Yeah. So I'm going to be doing a lot of colleges, but then I'm hoping that next winter I'll be going out for more acting roles and hopefully develop some sort of acting career in the next few years in addition to stand-up, and then just kind of take it from there. But I'm also making a documentary on this whole experience, and I'm also writing a book. So those
awesome.
will be coming out next year. Yeah.
That's awesome. And you shot since day one?
No, we started shooting in the middle, though I do have footage of some of the stuff.
Great.
Earlier in the streets.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, man.
Thanks, Jonathan. I really appreciate it, man.
It was a pleasure. You pronounced my name right. That's awesome.
Yeah, man. Come on now.
People have a problem doing that.
Yeah, I can imagine.
All right. Well, thank you.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, and let me know, man. Let me know when you come out to LA.
I would love to see you perform. All right.